actually made it to a gas station. After doing the research, it looks like I traveled just north of 200 miles while spending a quarter of it on dirt roads. Out of my 5.3 gallon tank, I was down to about 0.6 gallons. At the average of 45 miles a gallon, for a 2009 Kawasaki Vulcan 900 Classic, I could have made it another 25 miles if I were on pavement going cruising speed. Maybe I was at no real risk. Maybe I would have been fine, but hey, I now know the limits of my bike to a pretty good extent. And I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. I'm just very happy I didn't choose to take the 85 fuel by mistake. This would have been a completely different adventure if I'd done that. So here's what's next. It's about another 200 miles to the North Dakota border. Much of eastern Montana is like the Dakotas. It's flat, rich farmland known as the High Plains that was once home to the Sioux and Plains tribes. It still is, to an extent. I'm flanked by the Fort Belknap and Fort Peck reservations to the east and west of me. These reservations were established in the post-Civil War era as the Native American Wars began to wind down and the once large Dakota Territory was carved up into 2 states and 2 smaller territories. These reservations are populated by the native tribes that once lived in the Great Sioux Reservation that was lost in the Great Sioux War. Many here are the descendants of warriors that fought under Sitting Bull. By the way, this bugs me. It's ATM, not ATM machine. It's not automatic teller machine. It's just like saying PIN number. Personal identification number, yeah, anyway. Much more recently, in March of 2012, a combined effort was made by the National Park Service, the World Wildlife Fund, and other environmental groups to work with local tribal governments to introduce the first purebred buffalo herds to these reservations in over 100 years. Bison from the Yellowstone National Park were introduced to game preserves on these reservations. There are many wild buffalo herds across the Great Plains, including in Minnesota, but these are some of the few that are not crossbred with cattle. These bison are just as purebred as those that grazed across the continent in pre-Columbian times. To have colonies of these bison in many regions is helpful for the long-term success of the species. As the herds of these reservations grow, they can be crossbred with Yellowstone bison to promote genetic diversity among their populations. Genetic diversity is essential to the long-term prosperity of an endangered species. Even if a species survives a bottleneck event, such as the buffalo did in the Manifest Destiny era, low genetic diversity can still threaten a species that's limping onward. You see it in purebred breeds of dogs that come with birth defects such as hip dysplasia or inherited diseases. If their breed success and survival is only possible through a small handful of females, problems for the breed get worse. The same can happen to an entire species. Spreading out the purebred bison is essential to their long-term success. The additional grazing space will give the herds room to grow, as they cannot expect to be packed into one national park and not increase their number without issue. Bison herd management plans will also call for the culling of herds to promote their long-term growth, which can in turn provide meat and other bison products for the tribes, much like it was done in the old days. Malta, and much of what's next heading east on US Route 2, are towns that were straddled along the Great Northern Railway that used to be headquartered in Minneapolis. It was the only transcontinental railway to be built without a dime of federal subsidies. It was the only one to be successfully privately funded in its entirety. It is said that as these towns in the area were being established, a Great Northern Railway official spun a globe and pointed at an area at random to name them. Malta was named after the small island country in the Mediterranean, Sacco was after Sacco, Maine, and Glasgow was named after the most populous city in Scotland. Just west of Malta in 1901, the outlaw Kid Curry successfully robbed a Great Northern train of anywhere between $40,000 and $80,000, which is $1.6 to $2.4 million today. Kid Curry and his band of outlaws were headquartered in the Hole-in-the-Wall hideout in Wyoming to the south, discussed in episode 12 of the season when I was heading on my way west to the Pacific. Kid Curry would end up being jailed, escaped, robbing again, and caught in a shootout where he was presumed to be killed in Colorado 3 years later. A man killed in the shootout is thought to be Kid Curry, but rumors persist that he escaped to Latin America with his fellow hole-in-the-wall outlaws, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. A dirt road is named after him, just west of the Malta airfield where the train robbery would have occurred. Kid Curry Road. Well, it's been a long time coming. Counting this one, I've been in Montana for 14 episodes. 15 if you count that one time I clipped through down in Yellowstone on my way into Idaho.
And then I see this. What? What?
I toured Glacier, ghost towns, the breaks, and almost put myself in a survival situation not once, but twice. I've been able to discover a lot of what Big Sky Country has to offer. It's been amazing. Now, I find myself at the border of the Peace Garden state, North Dakota, at the fringe of the Bakken Formation, also known as the oil fields of North Dakota.